Just give it a couple minutes. Trying to wake up. All right. What a week. What a 6 months, to be honest.
That looks good.
Yeah, I got a new light, by the way, and so I don't know what I think about it because I don't know if it's actually. I'm trying to like step up my game a little bit, like Bell has over there, where it's just like perfect, right? And mine like weird shadows. But if I look extra shiny right here, that's what's going on. In case people are wondering. All right, well, let me grab my coffee.
Coffee's important.
I have no shame. I'm eating my donut this morning.
In an Obama mug, even. So I know. Maybe I get myself in trouble around here. Eating a donut. I keep thinking that I need to bring donuts in for everyone, and
virtually.
No, not for you guys. No, I don't care if you guys. Do it. No,
I mean, how nice of you.
I mean, for like,
you're talking about giving us donuts?
I should be the guy who's giving donuts to security who's working every day, and then I drive in and I don't pass a donut shop, and I have like no discipline or memory. So like by the time I get here, I'm like, oh yeah, I definitely didn't figure out how to do this nice gesture I've been telling myself I should be doing for the last 2 months. But I'm gonna get there eventually. Did everyone get? I mean, I know we'll get started, but everyone got the email with some of the documents, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cool. See everyone's head nodding. Cool.
Yes.
And those headphones, man. Those are like gamer headphones.
Gamer, I use them when I'm doing some mixing as well. And
okay, so they're serious.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I want a set like that.
Right. Like I don't know if I can afford those.
Yeah, believe it or not, I got these for like $6 at Menards last year. So
Nice.
Wow, okay.
Hey, I'm ready, Mayor.
Yeah, it takes me like months before I even get a light. I would think at the end of the year I might get a headset. Year or two, maybe a microphone. I don't know. I got like this.
And then we won't need it.
Right. I know. And then like COVID goes away. Yeah. Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I have to have like a weekly standing, or I should like a weekly standing appointment to go get COVID testing. Like I've had 3 of them now. And has anyone gotten a COVID test?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so
Like I need to though.
look at Kara. She's like, oh no, I go in my closet. I actually put taped, right? Say my age. Recorded mine and put it on my Facebook to try to show people like it's not that bad. It's pretty bad though. It's hopefully we get them quicker and a little less abrasive. They pretty much stick a swab like you think here, but it's like somewhere here, and
So it's touching your brain basically.
pretty much. And Health Corps are like gentle with it, like they're just boop, boop. And then the county, they're
Touching your brain.
yeah, go to the other one, wiggling it, just getting crazy. Like I don't know where they find these people, but definitely not the most pleasant experience. But being mayor, COVID's inconvenient, so everyone kind of forgets about it, and you're kind of forced to go out there and do stuff. And then, lo and behold, someone comes to my diversity, inclusion, and civil rights committee with COVID, and it's just thanks a lot, guy. But yeah, that's the world we live in, right? Like the other thing too is like I'm kind of happy he told all of us, even though now we all have to go get tested and freak out for a little bit. But
yeah. So the test that I had, it was the swab was a little more flexible, and it didn't seem to go back as far. That one. I mean, it's a weird sensation, but
right.
It wasn't bad.
No, the first one was the worst, I think, because you just I didn't know it could go back that far. Like I didn't know like my nose like went back, way back here. The swab though, I mean, like you mentioned, it's interesting. One of the reasons why we're kind of so late on getting testing is the swab isn't like wood and cotton. It's like a plastic type material that has to be just pretty much just neutral when it comes to DNA because of the type of testing they do. So yeah, very, and I think they're getting better with them where they're kind of like these space age swabs where they're not just, the stuff you clean your ears with. So very, hopefully we get better testing though, like very, still kind of abrasive. We want to encourage people to get testing. We want to encourage to kind of get that stigma off where, hey, if you have COVID, cool, tell everyone that you've been in contact with so they can get tested. And I think they're going to improve on the test. Like I'm sure that they're working to make less abrasive. Well, they were saying that months ago, so who knows? But less abrasive tests. We'll see what happens. But all right, we're about 7 minutes in. I think we're missing a few folks, but hopefully they chime back in. So good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. We're going to call this meeting to order. Are we live streaming this meeting so that the public knows?
It's supposed to be.
Okay, cool. Can we record at least the volume? I mean, at least the volume or whatever, just in case for some reason it's not. We can throw ourselves in the mercy of the press and say, "Here's the recording." I just haven't talked to Tyler today, so I don't know if he's streaming it. Normally, this gets he's able to take the Zoom meeting and then like stream it over on YouTube using Magic. So, but I can't see that from my end. So I think it's cool. Anyways, all right. Did everybody have a chance? We'll call this meeting to order. Did everybody have a chance to review the minutes from last meeting?
Yes.
I guess. Any proposed changes to the minutes or thoughts? Mine is stapled in the wrong corner, but that's my problem. With that, I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes.
Okay.
Make a motion to accept.
Motion was made by Mr. Bell. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Beck. All in favor of said motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The ayes have it. Motion passes. I need a gavel. They won't give me one, which I kind of understand. All right, so let's go to the agenda. We've had we'll go through, but particularly on the unemployment stuff, I think some of this we're going to get through somewhat quick, but the unemployment stuff has really just blown up as far as the department speak of. So we'll chat about that a little bit. I mean, good and bad, right? Like any change usually results in stress, but it looks like the governor's really taking the reins there. But we'll talk about that when we get to it, and hopefully, I want to get your feedback on that, of course, to figure out what, if any of those changes we're feeling in the business community yet. So first item was a discussion on multilingual folks available at the testing sites. So confirmed Spanish language printed materials and Spanish speaking staff for testing / services by health department. And so we talked to Ms. Byrne, the Central County Health Director, and she reported that they have both language translations in Spanish and in Vietnamese, and they have people on site who can communicate in both Spanish and Vietnamese, which is really good. I don't know if we want to try to make a push for any other common languages. I know that we have and Ian could probably speak to this, even though he's down in Hayesville, he probably could speak to Wichita schools. I think we have 68 languages in our schools or something along those lines. And, and what's your thought with your interaction with, different folks down, at least in the school systems? Do you think Vietnamese and Spanish hits the majority of the folks who speak more than one language at home?
Yeah, I would definitely say that because at my school, we have a larger amount of, well, of course we have Spanish, but also of Vietnamese, Hmong language as well, and even a couple of Arabic.
Oh, okay.
So. But yeah, having that was one of the big things with, especially with the ESOL department, which I worked with. We do have a lot of students who come in from Vietnam, as well as Indonesia.
Okay,
So,
Indonesia. I think we have a pretty large Laotian community as well
mhm,
here.
mhm,
We have, I think, actually a Laotian temple.
yeah,
And I do want to know, and maybe we should reach out and ask about this. The Islamic Society of Wichita actually, I believe, hosted their own testing. Like I think they actually had their own, maybe a mobile site come over to do their own testing, and that seemed pretty cool, right? Where if you're, particularly if you're someone who you just mentioned, Arabic is a language that might be a first
mhm,
language spoken at home, and for your students, if you're someone who's better with a language like Arabic, you might feel more comfortable going to, the Islamic Society to get testing. I wonder if we could probably look into testing in different communities. This kind of takes us away from our business focus a little bit, but testing for the coronavirus, I think, helps all of us, and it's a huge economic, suppressant if this thing spreads more than it does. I wonder though if we could reach out, or maybe I'll just put it as a note for me to reach out to other communities and see if having, over in the Vietnamese temple area, if they would be interested in a mobile site for people of that community who might want to come out and get tested as well. Or the Laotian temple. Okay, well, let's keep our kind of, I guess, our attention on that. If or it really not just language barriers, but any type of barriers with getting tested. I do wonder as well, what other barriers are out there. Is rides, is that a problem? Is it the way that you have to, you can't just go wait in line, you have to actually, they'll give you a time to come. So, would we be better off if we actually had the type of drive-through testing that they had over on 21st Street, Wichita State's Metroplex? That's what it is. Wonder if that had a better service to some folks who, families maybe with one car, who couldn't commit to showing up at 11 o'clock, but they could, once the person uses the car, comes home, they go use it to go wait in line. So I think that might be the next step for trying to promote testing, is trying to figure out what communities, what groups might feel left out of the current system. Health-wise or business-wise, I know we have a lot of people on a call who do service work, or not service work. Geez, help me out. Like, by the way, I have not finished that coffee, so bear with me. That do that provide a service. Like, this word is going to come to me like 10 minutes from now, where, like cosmetology, that type of stuff, where you have to have close proximity to your client. Has there been just among people in your professional circles, has there been any concerns or talks or even spread of coronavirus? Has any feedback that we should be taking note of that maybe we could work
Has there
on?
been concern about that?
Well, of course it's concern, but I mean, like, has there been like concern where like people aren't getting PPE, or maybe it didn't hit we're kind of at the mercy of the media, right? Where if
Right.
it doesn't go to the newspapers, we don't hear about it. But you guys are on the front line, so you might, where, well, so-and-so did test positive for coronavirus, and we're a little worried about how that affects, when that information gets through the client base, how that affects what the business might be like. So pretty much just look some feedback on that. Should we be doing, what else could we be doing as far as testing, and so particular needs?
Well, so for myself, what I'm running into right now, still having a little bit of trouble locating stuff here and there. What I'm trying to do is not necessarily hoard materials, but just have a little bit of back stock. and it can be hit or miss to find it. And then of course the prices are going up on everything. So that just, adds to my overhead costs. But you just find it where you can, I guess. So there's a concern for that right there. I have had, not necessarily for myself, but I have had a few clients in the last few weeks that have had exposure. So they've had to cancel and reschedule. I set up a policy just for my own business as we're going into summer and travel season, where I've asked my clients, if you've traveled really outside of the state, to please reschedule your appointment 14 days out, just because really, let's be honest, if you're anywhere outside the city, you might as well consider that, a hot spot. And the numbers are only going up everywhere. So most of my clients have been pretty conscientious of that. And I can't speak for, Emily's not with us today. I can't speak for Felicia. Most of my clients have been pretty conscientious of that. But I've had 3 clients that I can think of that have had to message me and said, I've been contacted that I've been exposed to COVID and I need to get tested and I need to reschedule. So that in turn has effect on, my income, because I have people that are having to cancel and move appointments around. So, there's going to be a ripple effect from this for sure. So that's probably the biggest challenge that I'm facing in my industry. But if it keeps me safe and keeps me open, but the fact that the numbers are going up is something that concerns me.
Yeah, I have a follow-up question, but before, I'm just going to mention the statistic. I need to figure out what it is on the local level, but I think it was NPR yesterday that said that I think there are a lot of people who have been blaming the numbers going up on the amount of tests happening, and I'm one of them, where I thought, well, we're going to have more positives and we're testing more people, but actually the percentages aren't adding up, where we're actually increasing testing by about 5% nationally, and then coronavirus nationally is actually going up about 30%. So I think we got to kind of have more of a deep dive into some of these numbers to really see what's going on. Is coronavirus going up because we're testing more people and thus people have it and didn't really know it, and those people normally didn't seek testing? Or is it going up because it's spreading faster? The data is starting to show that's the reasoning, right? Or you can get coronavirus without being tested or have it without being tested because you're showing up at the doctor with symptoms. So that's a concern. At the end of this process, by the way, or the end of this pretty much 3-month sector, I'm hoping that we can come up with a report for other businesses to prepare for if we have another wave in the fall. So and so stuff like encouraging stockpile of PPE and other materials, I think is really good. Maybe one of the things we could be thinking of is, do we want to pile like a month of that or 3 months? What would be the recommendation moving forward from this group, as far as, if someone's reading the report on what we came up with to be prepared in the future? I think 3 months is usually what they recommend with like money in the bank, right? Like, be prepared for 3 months of paying bills if you can, I guess. So do we want that to be the standard? Do we want it to be 1 month or 2 month? I think it's something we should be thinking about. What type of stockpile should people would we recommend moving forward? And is there any other data or game plan that's out there that we can also kind of look at? So but that's a good point that you brought up, that you're stockpiling some of this stuff.
I would assume, since it took me 3 months almost to get the masks that I ordered, that a 90-day stockpile, that hovers on that, you're not hoarding, but you're, that's, I think, solid preparedness.
Preparing.
Without hoarding, so that you're taking away from what other people need. I think that's a manageable number. because that's about how long it took me to get just the basics that I needed. So I think financially and just from a supply standpoint, that's a good number to recommend.
Definitely.
Can I chime in here? This is Felicia. Can I chime in on what
Yes.
Janelle has to say here? I'm totally in agreement with her about the PPE. That's been one of our difficulties. Our biggest thing that we've struggled to find is Lysol, which you would never think in a million years you couldn't find some sort of spray disinfectant. And it seems like we get there and, oh, we had a bunch and now we don't have a bunch. And for our industry, there are certain things we have to have in order to even operate.
Right.
So, and I don't think anybody really thinks about that. They just think of medical. Well, we are also one of the few industries where you are touching somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have the proper things to disinfect, you can't even work. So yeah, for us, and like she said, you order things and it takes so long for it to get here. I think that we're going to need to have that to be prepared in order to be able to get through the fall, because, you're cleaning extensively. And I think some people don't realize this isn't a new thing for us. This is what we've done forever in our industry.
Mm-hmm.
And if your person in that industry hasn't done that, they've not been on top of things. But we clean after every single client. So there's a lot of stuff that you have to have that goes into that. And she's right also that the cost is going up quite a bit, and that affects small business as well. So that has been a bit of a struggle. But yeah, making sure that we can still get that is an important thing as well, I think.
So like I found Lysol yesterday at the Dillons at Douglas and Hillside, and I almost wanted to cry because I've been looking for Lysol since I reopened, but they're limiting you to 2 cans. My instinct is I wanted to buy every can they had, but I felt guilty because I know there's plenty of people like me who need it, but then I can only buy 2 cans.
Yeah,
so, I'm down. I was down to like the last little tiny bit of Lysol, which I had to take from my own home to even use in my business. So, but the panic part of me was like, I need to buy all 7 cans that are here, but I couldn't. So that's kind of what we're up against.
Yes.
And that Dillons only had 7 cans for the whole store. So it's tough for sure.
It makes you wonder. I'm like, did Lysol just all of a sudden decide they're going to quit making Lysol, or is Lysol hoarding the Lysol?
Well, and it's going to be a stupid question, but with some of the locally made hand sanitizer type products, is there anything that's locally brewed up that can kind of substitute some of the stuff you guys are looking for?
For hand sanitizer, sure, but there's not many things that take the place of Lysol because it's an aerosol. So
and the thing that we struggle with is, you have to, it's not just something, you don't want something that you have to put down that you have to wait 10 minutes. And some of us have had to go with that part. Your tools have to soak for 10 minutes, but to have your chair or your table or something like that have to sit for 10 minutes, we're looking for like a 1 to 3 minute kill time. And I've been speaking with someone local that has a company that deals with disinfectants, and I'm going to try to speak with him again today. So I'm looking at some other alternatives to Lysol.
Okay. If you find it, can you report that back to us? If you're able to find any, that'd be great.
Because it needs to have a good kill time. Because I found Cavicide, it needs to have a good kill time, but also not damage your
equipment.
That fine line.
Yeah, because otherwise your stuff starts tearing apart, it's wearing down, or it gets this gooey kind of icky film on it that you can't get off. And our stuff has to be, it's not just wiping it down and sanitizing. Ours has to be a disinfectant where it's bactericidal, fungicidal. They took the tuberculocidal out. What did I miss? Bacteria, fungicide,
all the bad stuff.
Yes, yeah, the three things that we legally have to have per our board. And so it's not just something where you just go in and clean and then not disinfect. One of the things that we push heavily at our shop, we even have a sign at our front door. Please walk immediately to the restroom and wash your hands. And then in our restroom, we have a sign. Please sing happy birthday 2 times while you wash your hands. And it's actually become kind of a funny thing with our clients because, we only see guys, so we are already in a new rotation of seeing them a second time. And so, all our guys will enter the door and then they put their hands up immediately like they're a doctor walking in the scrub. And so they just immediately beeline towards the restroom to wash their hands. So that is our biggest thing that we push, on top of the other things that we do. But it's amazing how people don't think that something as simple as washing your hands can help keep you well.
Mr. Bell.
Hey, Mayor. So I wanted to just share this for Janelle and Felicia. So the chamber, this group, this COVID task force, has established a subcommittee to focus on healthy business practices. That essentially, basically, this group is going to develop and identify some of these things, like the 90-day time frame that we just heard as being like an optimal amount of supply that business owners ought to have, and some other recommendations that business owners and service providers come up with. This group is developing this list of items that then they're going to communicate widespread. So I just wanted everybody to know, Mayor, City Manager Bob Layton is on that committee, and it's led by Keith Lawing of the Workforce Alliance, as well as Gary Plummer from the Chamber. But if any of the business owners, such as Felicia or Janelle, if you all are interested, I could try to get you at least, I can't speak for the committee, but I'm sure they would welcome your input and perhaps even your participation on that committee. So I'm going to send you guys the notes because they just met for the first time this week. I'll send you guys the notes and with contact for that committee, and perhaps you guys could at least share perspectives.
Awesome. That's great. And any chance we can collaborate, I think it's really important. One of the great things about Wichita is the different groups and how people are willing to network. So yeah, let's, if you could just, you're on those boards and I think plugged in on that side. If sometimes I don't hear from Bob for a couple of days, and when I do, it's usually because we have some fire we're putting out. So I haven't gotten updates on that committee. So I'll
send these notes to D, and then D, you can send them out to everybody.
Perfect.
Is that okay?
Thank you.
Okay.
Excellent. Well, let's get into next item on the agenda. I know we got I kind of steer us off a little bit with it. Explore options for bringing the divide for community members not using social media. We still, I think, need to do more of this, where 211 is kind of that hard line that we're able to establish that is now the pathway to get a coronavirus test. It's also was the number to call for just a bunch of different services. So I think that finding ways to get that out there more, I think that, I'm wondering if there are options to do any type of advertising, maybe on radio or any other type of advertising. It's something I could look into. I know that we do have, or we had a little bit of a budget for, talking about the census or doing other types of announcement about 211, about the concerns of coronavirus that's still here, even though it's not as I think on the news as prevalent as it was a few months ago, and getting that information out. So maybe that's something that should, I guess, fall onto my plate, where wondering if we can use some COVID money to try to promote finding resources out off the internet. Any feedback on that? Any other thoughts?
Intercom Cares is a good one that nonprofits use a lot.
Okay.
And then I know somebody last time had mentioned if we don't have anything in the newspaper, that would probably be a good option as well.
For sure. Very good. Joey, I think you had your hand up.
I just am noticing a lot of, continued reduction in the amount of people wearing masks. And I think if we continue with positive messaging about helping protect the rest of the community. Maybe even it's your patriotic duty to protect your fellow citizens in the community. I'm a real estate agent, and I've noticed that since we've opened up having open houses again, which I'm personally not doing, but I did go to an open house with a client, and I was just shocked at the number of people crowded in this small house without any kind of mask. I mean, there were a handful of people, but the majority of the people were not wearing masks and shuffling through tight corners in rooms and hallways and things like that. And I just think the messaging needs to continue, because there's that ongoing feeling. It's that divide where there's half of the population thinks this is important and we need to wear masks, and the other half thinks it's all hooey. So part of it would just be messaging for me in my industry, I believe.
Yeah, I'm really upset with how, like, politicians are just dirty, terrible people. Don't get me wrong, but there's like a level of like, this should be hands off, right? Like, let's not politicize a health crisis, right? Like, do we have like a gray area that we're not going to wander into as elected politicians? And it seems like they cross that line where, oh, it's about freedom. It's about, like, utilizing these patriotic sounding taglines that actually enforce like selfish behavior, in my opinion. If you are not interested in protecting strangers by taking precautions, I think that is not looking out for your neighbor, right? So, but it got wrapped up in this weird political terminology and even somewhat party-based, and I think it comes from some of our leadership that didn't really focus on prioritizing mask wearing. Like, you would see our federal leadership out there, like our president, vice president out there in let's say a factory where everyone's supposed to be wearing masks and they chose not to, and the sad thing is, like, I see it's comparable to, and when you talk about it this way, it's very comparable to like speed limits, where like we don't suggest speed limits. Like, you have a hard number for, it's not a suggestion, it's a law. And the reason why is because it's not really about you, it's about the other people on the road too, right? It's not that I'm doing 30 in a neighborhood or a residential area or 20 in a residential area because I'm protecting myself. It's also because I'm protecting the children who are running in the street. Like, so, and the whole like arguments against masks, like, they're the type of arguments people make on speed limits, right? Like, well, I should have the freedom to, rip through this neighborhood doing 70. And so what I'm saying is I'm really disappointed how political or ideological almost it got when it came to these masks. And I'll tell you, I'm on a call with the hospitals and their leadership every Monday, and the bumps in numbers usually correlate with like a particular event or day, where we actually saw a bump after Mother's Day, where like at one point there were like very few cases one week at the hospital, people being hospitalized for it, and then boom, next week they have more, and they trace it back to Mother's Day, like just that one day where people took the day off, right? And so as we move forward and people are saying, oh, it's really not a big deal, it's politically becoming, I think, also a tagline as the election cycle starts to heat up. We have primaries coming up, and then we have the general election. And we saw a little bit of it where we just saw the senatorial debate for the Republicans, over at Century 2. And I didn't watch it or anything. I'm not going to put myself through that. But I heard there was discussion about masks, and it wasn't following the guidelines that the CDC would lay out. And frankly, it's why we're not doing as well as some other areas. And it scares me, because Wichita, we've done really great stopping the spread of this. We were supposed to have 200 to 300 people die by now, according to the modeling. We've had under 30 countywide, but sadly that number keeps going up since they have restricted, or eased any type of the restrictions. So, moving forward, I think it's going to take all of us. I can't do it alone because I think that being in a political arena, people want me, will do stuff opposite just because I ask them to, right? Like, well, I don't like your party, so therefore I'm not going to take any of your advice. But, people I think are in different circles of influence. That's where you really see the value with normal people talking about how we need to wear masks and how it's not about protecting yourself, it's about protecting the next person who touches this doorknob. Sorry, I'm also just really frustrated with all that, like doing really well up front with this virus, and now it's starting to hit again. And so is the political cycle hitting at the same time, and they're crossing into each other. And it makes me wonder, like, can't we talk about taxes? Like, we shouldn't divide people on basic health, basic personal health advice from medical experts. So I don't know. Don't get me started, but I totally just got started. But a really good point is this thing is not over. And I think we should be doing a better job talking about preventative methods. And I think it's like 70% if both of us are wearing masks and one of us is contagious and don't know it, the chances of spreading that drop dramatically, almost 70%. So it's if we would just kind of bite the bullet and wear these, then I think that we would do a really good job stopping a spread, particularly with people traveling. That's the other thing is economically, we want people to come into Wichita. And there's a small part of me, it's I really don't want people from, Texas coming to Wichita right now if they don't get a handle on a coronavirus, because it's really kind of blowing up, in Houston and some of these other areas. So it's likely we'll start seeing a bump as people start traveling more. And we got to be as cautious as possible. So, all right, I think I took too much time with that, but so yeah, Bridget. So let me look into Bill laughs because he knows. He's like, yeah, you did. So we're gonna let me look to see if there's some CARES Act money that can help us get the message out, not only on resources but also masks. Loan forgiveness workshop information, Mr. Bell. This falls into your lane. It looks like there's some stuff that you were working on. So, oh wait, Fee just had her hand up. Yes.
On the money for the CARES Act, I know you're talking about, possibly radio and things like that. I don't know what it would cost, but maybe even a mailing to people, especially if you look at zip codes where maybe they don't have television or radio proportionately. Everybody gets mail.
Yep.
So I know I get a lot of junk mail. So even a postcard that says something about, the 1, 2, 3 or what have you, that might be beneficial.
Yeah. So the CARES Act money is kind of this bucket of money that can only be spent on stuff like this. So even though a newspaper ad might actually cost less, if we don't spend CARES Act money, we actually lose it. We eventually have to return it. So I think looking at mail, it's more effective. So that's something we should look into, even if the price tag's higher, because we might actually have the budget for that. So good point. Yes, Janelle.
Sorry, I had to step away for a phone call. Did anybody mention digital billboarding at all for that?
No, but I'm writing it down now.
That would be really good. And it's quick. It's quick to get your message out. That would be good.
Yeah, it's easy to design. You just design, send the file over, and then pop it up there. So
because I was thinking, a lot of people might see a piece of mail and just throw it out without reading it, but everybody's out and about, walking, driving, whatever, and you hit some of those key corners with longer stoplights and things like that. Maybe that's a good way to get a message out.
I think he has some coronavirus billboards already out. I've seen it.
I've seen some, so that might be a good way to follow up that message too.
Find a way to coordinate it. Yeah.
And I don't know, it seems like it's fairly affordable. So could you get more bang for your buck and maybe extend that message out even longer through the fall, through this next wave or peak? Okay. So anyway. That's my
All
two
right.
cents.
Well, and isn't it like you have to see something 10 times before you actually register it? So if it's on a
7, but yeah.
billboard and social, I mean, like you've got to see it. Yeah. Did you say 7 times, Amber? Is that what you said?
As an
So-
educator, I
7
can verify
times.
that.
So yeah.
Right. So in politics, the message needs to be seen 7 times unless you have a conversation, unless it's a really good interaction. Which, this puts us in a weird spot. We can't have people actually go knocking doors and talking about this because they would spread coronavirus. But yeah, unless it's something interactive, then it actually takes less times. But also, and that might be interesting too, where if we did like a poll or even a mailing where you kind of fill out 3 things, if it's interactive and people engage at a higher level, then the information sticks more. But so if we are sending a mailing, I'd be actually interested to see if we get some feedback from folks on, what they think about masks, what they think about the coronavirus. That might actually be, usually as a state representative, I used to send out mailings to my district, and I would think if I'm going to pay for the stamp is what costs the most. And I would say if I was going to pay for the stamp, I might as well have like a tear off or something where they could send me a postcard back with their opinions. So maybe if we do a mailing, maybe we can have some type of a short survey with that where people can return it and pretty much tell us, get kind of the temperature, I guess, of the community when it comes to taking some of these precautions. That might help with our messaging. And now I'm thinking like with a campaign brain. Go ahead, Amber, and then we'll get to Belle.
No, then that's okay. I was just going to add, I not to play the generation card or anything like that, but I think it's kind of a generation thing about the mask and, wearing them, because I always know when I go out, it's always the older generation that's wearing them. My generation and under is a little bit more skeptical. And when you get, because I'm a millennial with you, anybody under millennials, they're starting to a point where they're not really wearing the mask. And, I think that's kind of where we are. I think if we're going to do a target, we should be targeting the younger generation.
We could do a targeted. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's good input. Let's get back to that. Let me try to bounce that off, see if we got a pot of money to play with, and also, some marketing strategies or even campaign strategies to.
It should be an app. Let young people have an app. That's when you'll download it. You can tattle.
I actually think that like the social shaming young people do to each other helps too, where like if you're not wearing a mask, you're not responsible, and now we're going to shame you online. Like that seems to be like a big motivator for, I think,
why you get an app or, Facebook or any of that. I'm just saying.
All right. Kara.
I just want to throw out there that I really like the idea of doing the postcard and having people send in their opinions, because I know that there are people out there who do have legitimate fears of wearing the mask, as there are concerns that the mask might actually cause further issues. Cloth mask potentially might not actually stop the virus from getting in. Not only that, but if there is a virus, then it is just sitting on your face. So I do think that, sending out a survey and really hearing why people aren't wearing the mask would be really beneficial and kind of help us see how we need to move forward with all of this to get
that's actually really good feedback, because I think that we all almost project, oh, you're not wearing a mask because you're listening to crazy politicians, or you're like, we almost project our reasoning, and it's much better to actually ask for a reason.
Well, it would be nice if we could put out a point out there that this isn't political.
We should do that.
That's what we're seeing a lot of, and it's extremely frustrating. One of the girls who works for me went to Dylan's the other day, and she had on a mask, and somebody said something smart alecky to her. She's a millennial, and they said, "Oh, are you trying to make a political statement?" And she said, "Actually, no, I'm not. I voted for so-and-so. My mother's in the medical industry, hence the reason I'm wearing a mask."
Right.
And I think that's one of the big problems too, because now it's become a political statement, either side. And I'm completely non-political. I'm just all about be a good human, treat everybody right. And I think that's one of the big problems. If we can figure out how to put out some sort of message about this is not political, don't judge people just because they're wearing a mask.
Like I said, I take blame for this, even though like just because I'm in this arena, right, where we lost the handle on that. Like I remember getting a call into the Call of the Mayor show from one of the Senate candidates who's a congressman, and like I was really fast with that verbal backhand, where like no, because the DC thing was to make this political, and in Kansas we were not on that that line of thought, and Commissioner Meissner was really good with this, where he was, he's a Republican, I'm a Democrat, and he was, there's not a Republican or Democrat virus. Like, this is a virus for all of us. Like, we were really on message with that. And I think we just lost the handle on it. Maybe we just gave an inch away from that messaging, and then like, boom, the media or the online stuff really filled in the gap. I'm not sure if we can make up for lost ground, but I agree with you. One of the big challenges right now is that you're almost divided up into like political tribes if you're wearing a mask or not. So, all right, let's get to third item, which is forgiveness workshops and such, and we'll keep trucking along. So Wayne, you have the floor.
Okay. So I sent out, after our last meeting, I sent out information about 3 workshops that we had. We had one on June the 18th. We've got one today at 2:00, and we've got another one on Thursday, July 2nd. And I'll be sure to send the 2 that, the one for today and the one for July 2nd, I'll send that immediately again out to this group. What's important about the one that is set for today, we're fast approaching the deadline for the Paycheck Protection Program applications. The deadline is June 30th, and applications have to be in to the SBA by 11 p.m. Central Time on June 30th. So I'm sure we'll send out another press release and that kind of thing. But for this group, the main 2 dates to look at again are today and July 2nd. And then we have training that will be ongoing around these subjects and then our other programming. And I'll be sure to send out those dates, and maybe if we've got a link, I think we've got a longer calendar, but I'll review with our group to make sure and get that information to you guys. So are there any questions about anything on
if
these?
we can get that, use that information to kind of get out to our networks, that might be helpful as well. Because I'm not sure everyone knows that there is still help out there. I think that got really pushed that first time the CARES Act money got passed. And so there might be people who think they've already, missed the bus on that. So getting that info out there, I think is going to be important. Okay.
I'll see if we can't send out a press release today sometime, just as another reminder that the application deadline is fast approaching. And then we'll include at least the July 2nd date in the press release. So anyway, we'll send out some information broadly, but to the group, I'll send these 2 dates to you this morning.
Perfect. Excellent. Any follow-up questions for on this topic, Mr. Bell? See none. All right. So thank you for that. We'll be looking for that email. All right, so the other one, consider placing a master link to list everything available on wichita.gov. We had some pretty good discussion about this last time, where we had really the people who seem like kind of in the know or really involved in certain areas. Like, let's say if you're involved with the chamber, you already knew that they had this great list of resources or other areas as well. So we are putting those on our website. I think that was almost immediately resolved, where they took that information and threw it up on wichita.gov/coronavirus, or I believe it's coronavirus or COVID-19. It's one of the forward slashes. So also we want to be sharing the chamber videos more frequently. I think we have been able to do that. That gets out to our social media following. I should probably be doing more of that on my end as well. My social media following is slightly different. The people who follow me, I think, are different than the people who follow the city. So there might be some overlap. And for some of you guys who also have, a decent following on social media, if you mark through that, there might be some opportunity to help spread this type of information out there as well. But Gary Plummer has been really great as far as collaboration. Really, our Wichita partners have been very good as far as collaboration, not just with this. I'm not going to talk about the other committee, but not just with this, but, Gary showed up and attended most of the meeting for our diversity, inclusion, and civil rights committee as well, or council as well. So we have some really good partnerships that have, I think, a lot of reach to try to get some of this information out, and putting it in kind of a .gov format on our website is something we're working on, and I think that we've covered quite a bit of. So if you get a chance, check it out and let me know if there's more we should be doing, or if some links aren't working. And especially particularly if we find an alternative to Lysol, or, I know that going back to a previous conversation we just had, if we're finding some of these alternatives, we can update that website as well, where, we all want Lysol, but this particular brew of disinfectant is available and it's been shown to help out. So it might give us, I think, a better pathway of presenting information to people who need it. So any feedback on item 4, the master link? All right, so the shared job vacancies on to item 5. This was, I think, in Kara's lane for Dress for Success. We did reach out to Workforce Alliance, and he gave us an actual report, which is great. Isn't it great to work with the type of people who give a report like he sat down for an hour and wrote this. So I don't know. So Kara, what was your thoughts on it? Is there anything else that we need to be doing as a follow-up? And you're muted, so there you go.
I haven't had a chance to read the full workforce report yet, but just the first page that I got through, I was like, oh, this is very detailed. I'm excited to go through the rest and continue that partnership with Workforce Alliance. So thank you for that. Also, just wanted to, so again, if you guys know any vacancies, please let me know. Also, if you know of any like Facebook groups or anything like that, that small businesses are getting on, and I joined 316 networking, and I've noticed that a few businesses have been popping up and saying, hey, we have a vacancy open, or oh, I'm looking for a place, do you know of anything? And then just kind of reading through the comments to see who all has been, who's hiring right now, or kind of what people are looking for right now. So if you guys know anything, I would love to connect with you and get connected with others.
Yeah, just kind of a follow-up on that, where Brandon Johnson and I went out for, I'd say a drink, but I don't drink. We were going out to pretty much chat about some of our, the committee and some of the work we're doing, and went over to, God, I forget the name of the place. I'm so bad at this. Once you have kids, you don't go to Old Town anymore unless it's like that one or two like restaurants that are like designated date night restaurants. It's the place kind of by Mort's, and it's a brewery. Anyways, we tried to go in there so we could sit up top in the balcony on the outside, and the guy told us that he was closed because he didn't have enough staff. And he's like, we're trying to hire people, we really can't. There's a lot of people who are on unemployment right now. There's a lot of people who just don't want to come back to work. We're really desperate for staff, for cooks. The guy had no idea who we were, because Johnson was like, oh, okay, I'll tweet about that. I'll put that on my social media. And then the guy's like, are you guys from here? So anyways, which is always great, like, because, it's always scary when people know who you are and you realize like, okay, that cuss, like, I don't know if I did this right. But just like that, I think that there's a service industry. There are a lot of industries that are looking for folks, and we get people who are looking for work, right? So what can we do to try to network outward to folks who are looking for some type of employment? And really, the interesting thing when it comes to, I think, unemployment, and this was like the first crisis I dealt with as mayor, and tried to learn the integral dynamics of really employment at a time of crisis, is there are people who are furloughed and they just want to attend bar for a few nights a week, and then they want to go back to Spirit. They want to go back to what they normally do. And then there are some people who like my mom was a career waitress and bartender. Like she wants to she would want to have different areas that she can go and bartend as things close, that kind of spread out where she's able to work. So I think there might be some of that going on as well. I did have a meeting with the new president of Wichita State, and I think there will be some other opportunities for higher education as far as trying to get tuition free, trying to get higher education where it's more affordable. I know that Wichita and WCU Tech have been on really the front line of programs that are both either free or extremely affordable and have a economic result at the end, right? Where you're not just learning sociology like I did, like you're actually becoming marketable. So I think that's some of the stuff that we should also be talking about once those programs become more prevalent. They are prevalent, but once we kind of know what the semester is going to look like, I think for these schools, I know some of them going hybrid, some of the programs might have some problems if they're kind of the hands-on programs and they're not meeting. They're still doing adjustments. But one of the things we learned from the last recession is that people who don't have a job will go into higher education as a way to kind of rebuild their skill set and also hire from the free market, right? Where, I'm not really getting any bites on my resume, so I'm going to start taking classes. And then it's a way to improve yourself without, without needing to rely on work. You can rely on student loans or other tuition assistance. So that might be part of the mix, and something I'm keeping an eye on. But if I see particularly tuition-free type programs, Kara, I think that we could forward that on to your clients as well. Might be interested in that type of stuff. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say definitely. I know WSU Tech right now is taking scholarships for their first 15 hours free.
Wow.
We've been sharing that with our clients, and so just anything that you guys know. Our ladies, like I said, our ladies are from all industries. The hair industry, retail, food industry, manufacturing, aerospace, everywhere. So whatever information you guys have, even if it's not directly related to you, you just hear somebody else saying it, let me know.
Okay, will do. All right, excellent. Any more questions or conversation on that topic? Job vacancies. And like I said, I think that, our friends over Workforce Alliance did a pretty good job. Keith has been really good at getting information out when requested. So if anything comes up that, people are looking for this or that, let me know and I can ask Keith. He also is really good at posting pictures of his socks on Twitter. Not gonna lie, I sometimes get in on that. But anyways, moving on. So unemployment payments. We have had some turmoil over the last week when it comes to the unemployment system. And to be honest, like I like Delia Garcia. I kind of feel bad that she, because when we had the Spirit layoffs, I worked pretty close to Delia Garcia, who was the Secretary of Labor at the time, and also with the Secretary of Commerce, being kind of a creature of the legislature, right? Like it's easier for me to navigate through to those folks. And she was really great at working with businesses that were doing furloughs and just doing like an automatic upload of everyone who's getting furloughed, so they didn't have to go through the process of applying for unemployment, really simplifying that. And what worries me is even then she said, make sure people are doing it this way because it could override our system. And we only had like a couple thousand folks at that time who were being furloughed. So magnify that by, the greatest number of unemployment and people filing for unemployment in our state's history, plus it completely underfunded department that's running off like 1970s software. Like I got the background on where they got their software. The software was out of date, so it was like a good deal because it's like buying like Windows 98 right now. Like I bet we can all go get a really good deal on Windows 98. Doesn't mean we should be, running our system on that. But that was pretty much like the mindset that, it's a good deal, so we'll just use the software. And it just was not robust enough for it. And I don't know what would be. Like, I would be interested to know what state comes out of this unemployment crisis as, the the shining example. But Kansas was not set up to be that example and just got hammered. However, just an update if you guys haven't read the news with this, that system, they try to keep adapting to the old system and writing new code and I think trying to make it do stuff it wasn't meant to do. What it eventually did is it double padded some accounts. It actually gave the money to some accounts and then did a second payment, which I guess wasn't supposed to happen. And then the account tried to claw it back. So it actually like put money in someone's bank account and then try to take that money back. My understanding, the clawback aspect of it was actually not only to me that's immoral. To me, like you can't just go in someone's account, take money without letting them know. It caused a lot of obviously people who are getting unemployment are economically strapped at this time. So it caused, I'm sure, a lot of hardship for those families, and of course fees and other stuff that pile up with that type of not thinking you have money in account, it finds out you don't, and then checks bounce. So it caused a lot of problems. That's when Delia Garcia resigned her position, and the governor, I think, is pretty much her staff is taking over and are making some changes. So it's going to be interesting moving forward, but I will say that and I know that we're streaming live and everything, I shouldn't say stuff like this out loud. The governor is a political animal who gets things done. Like she won't put her name on something unless it's going to get done. Like she's formidable. She scares the hell out of me. No, so she's if her office is taking that over and she's like kind of focusing her eye on that, I'm confident it's going to get better. I'm confident that they have a plan in place and they're going to execute this plan. So we'll see what it looks like. It already seems like they are bringing in consultants. They're bringing in, other resources, which frankly, I wish they brought in before this. I think we still have people who are filed for unemployment and haven't gotten their checks yet, haven't got their money. We're seeing a spike in evictions. Like I said, I think the legislature played some politics and kind of forced the governor to back off on her executive orders. Well, one of those executive orders was to stop evictions. We're seeing some of the effects of that. So hopefully they fix the unemployment and people can actually get the money that they deserve because they paid into the system. But we haven't seen the results of that yet because it's only been about a week since it's been taken over by the governor's office. So I guess for people who aren't following it, I think one of the purposes that we can do is to let people know that there has been change in that department. And if you are someone who's kind of given up on it, like please don't, like give it another go, because there's reason to believe that the result will be different now, that pretty much all eyes are on this department. And like I said, the governor and her team are infusing it with their knowledge. So I think it's her chief or deputy chief of staff who's just taking over it right now, which, that's second only to the chief of staff. So I don't think she would be involving herself in trying to fix this unless they really have a plan to fix it and be aggressive with it. So I have hope, but you just never know. So who knows? We have hope and hopefully it gets better. But other than that, I think we'll know by our next meeting if it's better. And I'll tell you, this is one of the top things people call me on. And I wish I had more I could do, but being mayor, you really don't. But because you're accessible, people want to call you and talk to you about it. I have some hope though that they're going to make some changes needed. So,
can I add to your eviction comment?
Sure.
I know that, I know there's an uprising in evictions as well, but we also, we're talking about business owners here, and that really also put a strain on business owners because they weren't getting and couldn't evict due to that. So, it's a double-edged sword. It goes both ways. It's, we're worried about business owners here and being able to get PPP money and all of that. But, when she made those orders and that kind of stuff, it also hurt those business owners who couldn't evict and couldn't get the money that they, right along there with the same lines of unemployment. They didn't qualify, so it goes both ways, on that eviction notice.
Right. And you're right. Some people's business is rental,
Right.
it's rental property. And so it's not like, and they have bills to pay. It's not like, the banks are giving away, free mortgages or anything. So I think that that's a really good point. And it kind of gets back to the system where if someone's banging on something, sorry, if the system, if the system was working well, then we actually, you would have had unemployment. Like people could have paid their rent with unemployment. The stimulus check would have came down to try to fill any of the gaps. And that's one of the interesting things about this crisis is some of us who've been working in politics have talked about how there are underfunding of certain aspects of our government that are essential to essential safety net. America, where it's too good of a country to let people die of starvation, right? There's a safety net there to help you get food if you're economically can't buy food. But when it hits to the magnitude it has, I think that's when people start to realize, like, oh wow, like the system really. I kind of always thought that something would come in and help, and it wasn't there. So I think that's a big moving forward policy wise. That's going to be a big challenge for policymakers to try to fill in that gap. Sadly, they kind of have to learn from this negative experience. But yeah, it's the ripple effect is huge, right? It's not just families who now aren't working and who are getting evicted because they're a couple of months back on rent, but it's also, I have a rental property and we're paying a mortgage off on it. Like I tell the person I rent to, like who's usually late with the rent, like when you don't pay rent, like that, it's me loaning you money. Like I don't own this. I can't just turn a blind eye. I still have to pay for it. So I'm loaning you money. And that's the type of situation I think people are in that, the ripple effect is quite large. And I think it really stems down to, really not well funded services for the last decade. So, but they'll fix it, I hope, or we should vote in people who will. But I'm not going to go there.
Mr. Veld, were landlords able to apply for the just regular help from the SBC or SBA? I mean, was that something that was out there for landlords, or is there really no assistance for anybody in that kind of area? I don't know, quite understand. I mean, I know that someone could get the PPP, but I don't think that would quite qualify them for staffing wise. So
yeah, they needed to really, for both PPP and EIDL, the economic injury disaster loan.
Right.
If the landlord was established as a business owner, then they could apply, but it really was not intended for, say, an individual that did a normal job and had rental property or something. If they were tied to their business taxes, then yeah, they could apply, but otherwise it wouldn't.
I was just curious on that one.
Yeah.
So would most commercial landlords have been able to apply for that business wise?
Yeah. If they were in this instance, if there were a commercial landlord and they filed their taxes, let's say they filed as an independent contractor or they filed as a sole proprietor, then that net income as reflected on their Schedule C, I believe it's line 31, we've had to memorize this stuff. And so, yeah, if they filed their taxes that way as a sole proprietor, then they would have been eligible. And a portion of that, the way PPP, the program has been changed now to where 60% of that loan is supposed to go towards employees or payroll costs. And then now the other 40% could go towards these other payments. And so if that could have included lease payment or mortgage payment, that kind of thing. So yeah, in short, a commercial landlord could have, really would just depend on how they file their taxes.
Yeah,
Okay. So
Right.
it is possible, because we've had some try to tell us that there was no help for them, and which I thought was interesting to hear, especially if they are a very large commercial lending, or not commercial lending, excuse me, a commercial landlord with multiple properties. Okay.
Yeah, they could. And within the PPP program, so there's a size standard limit. It's 500 employees or less. And then if they, let's say they were so large that they exceeded that size standard, then we would go to the industry size standard for, in this case, let's say commercial real estate. So, I don't know that one off the top of my head, but we would look at that. Some industries are categorized either by their annual revenues or their number of employees. So anyway, there's a few different ways that they could have qualified, even if they were pretty large. They could have qualified for the PPP. And that's kind of why nationally the SBA took some hits, because there were some pretty large entities that were able to utilize PPP, and some even public traded companies, were able to utilize PPP. So anyway, long explanation, but yes, they could have qualified.
Thank you.
All right, guys, we're running a little past our hour. I think that the open discussion, we've kind of weaved some of that in on the agenda. I want to keep us close to the hour mark. We're about 15 over. Is there anything else at this point? If not, we can take the discussion online.
I just had one more thing. When we were talking about the masks and millennials and all that, since you have connections to Wichita State, would it be possible to try to, kids kind of look up to public figures? Could we not maybe recruit athletes at either the Wichita State level or maybe KU to maybe do some PSAs?
For influencers? Yeah, let me do some research on that, see what we can get. That's a good idea too. Okay, yeah, that's a good idea. Well, I wrote that down. So.
Okay.
All right. Well, anything else, guys? So now I gotta.
Love your show.
Next thing. Oh yeah, of course.
Would you let us know if you hear any more on changes with the unemployment office? Because I know several people. I have a person in particularly, and myself included, have still not heard even one word. I now get an email, or not an email, but when I try to ask for a phone call, it says I've exceeded the mandated number of times to request. Please give us 3 to 5 days, and I've been giving them, I don't even know how long at this point.
Yeah, I've given up.
Did you give up finally?
Yeah, I've just accepted I'm probably not going to get my remaining money.
We haven't got any.
Hopefully not. We'll let me work on that. Let me see what the plan is with that. I'll keep you guys updated. I'll also post about it, because I know there's more people who are very interested in the progress on this. So
mainly because I just don't have time to sit on the phone all day with that. So
I know.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
All right, we got people dropping off for meetings. All right, guys. We'll talk to you guys later.
Bye.
Thank you.
All.
Thank you.
Bye.